Welcome back to our final edition of the season of This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey. I'm Mike Hammond along with both Bergs and Dan Bauer along as well. And Junior, we're going to talk to a couple people tonight. Who all you got lined up?
Well, first we're going to talk to Coach Dewey Reilly of the Tomahawk Hatchets, the state champion Division II Tomahawk Hatchets. Coach, you guys made it to the state tournament last year, lost kind of a wild game with New Richmond in that opening round, and then we're ranked number one wire to wire this season in Division II to go back to the state tournament. And this year you won it. What was that journey like?
It was awesome. To be honest, it was one of those things where, talking to the kids with the schedule that we put together, you know, kind of taking a page out of, the Superior playbook where, you look at what Superior used to do where they'd go 500 in the season, running a really tough schedule, and then they'd come back to the state tournament and have a pretty good showing. And I got to, kind of catch up with Coach Kukowski over the last couple of years. And, he sends his well wishes and everything else, and taking a page out of their playbook where, the best teams that would schedule us, we obviously made it, every accommodation to play them. And so in the beginning of the year, if you'd have told me that we were going to go 25-3 or whatever we ended up being, I would have been ecstatic. I was expecting to be kind of that 14-10 team, something like that. But early in the season, seeing what we had and how the guys were playing together, I thought that we had a pretty good chance of putting together a pretty solid year.
Well, we noticed it last year when, I saw that you guys were in that Red Nose tournament down in Neenah. It's like they're, I know Tomahawk feels they have some, good players coming up, but I mean, this is like serious competition down in Neenah, and I don't think you guys won a game, but they were all competitive. You're competitive in every game. And this year you won your first two games and then, lost to Spash. And I kind of attribute, I mean, three games in 2 days and you don't have the depth, that
Right.
that Spash does. So it's kind of a lopsided loss there. But I mean, that you played some tough competition down there.
Yeah, and that was that's honestly, that's kudos to Coach Lindeman. Uh, I did not know him very well, but that was, we kind of pressured our AD going into last year that, we need to get away from the schedule that we'd been running. And, I was, kind of in the mix of helping coach and everything else. And I was a friend of a friend, and we called Lindeman and we're like, hey, can you get us in this tournament? And he kind of stuck his neck out for us. I think, fingers crossed that we would be okay. And like you said, we didn't win a game at that tournament, but I think we earned a lot of people's respect. And then to go back and have the showing we did this year kind of solidified the fact that, we're a D2 team, but on any given night, we can give you a pretty good game. I think you're absolutely right that with our depth running into the buzzsaw Spash that was running 3-4 lines, with depth on the third night, they took it to us. But overall, it was great for us to show the kids that we belong there. We can play with these guys, and we're a pretty solid club.
So looking back 5, 6 years ago, you had a program, or you were looking at a program. You were involved as the head coach at that point that went 0-20 season, and I think like a 2-20 season before that. How do you take a program and dramatically change it the way that you have done that?
It honestly started in 2012. Uh, Dan, we've known each other for a while. I was a hockey guy and loved hockey, and our youth program was not in the best of shape. I thought that what we were doing as a youth program, I thought we could do it better. And so myself and a couple other guys obviously got more involved. And we talked, off air about recruiting kids. We recruited local kids that were athletes and took every excuse possible to, not play hockey out of it. And we got them in. And this was, 10, 12 years in the making of, getting these kids to constantly punch above their weight class. And, we were a D3, D4 youth team that we would go play in D1 tournaments. We took the kids over to Minnesota and played there. And tried to make them understand that if we wanted to be good, we had to up our game and we had to play against the best competition we could on a regular basis. I did disagree with what we were doing in our high school program schedule wise. You play those teams and then you get knocked out in the first round, because you're just not prepared. And so, with a new AD, with me getting hired on, we basically said, this is what we're going to do. And I think that, history is going to tell us that it worked out.
It's interesting because you mentioned like we have a little bit of a history. I mean, I remember you as a player when I was coaching in Spooner. And I do remember one specific game, a freshman defenseman of mine who turned out to be all-state by the time he was a senior. But you walked him twice in that game, embarrassed him pretty badly, scored 2 goals. We lost 2-1, and I'll never let him forget that game. But yeah, I mean, I bring that up every time I see him. But it was one of the best, it's like one of those things you talk about. It's one of the best things that can happen to you sometimes is you get knocked down and you figure out a way to come back. And I guess my last question I have is how important all three teams that won down in Madison all lost at the state tournament a year ago. So how special is that motivation you get from coming that close and then not getting it done?
Honestly, it's huge. And I think it started with me. I was so excited to make it, to state, to get us down there, that sometimes, you take your foot off the gas. And that was kind of our message the entire season was that, this isn't a field trip. We're not going down there, you know, just to say, hey, we were a state qualifier. We've had that kind of marked on our calendar for a while. And so, throughout the season, the goal was to go, 1-0 in the next game. And then always knowing that this was going to win, lose, or draw, it was going to prepare us. That loss that we took to Spash in the tournament was awesome for not just, the kids, but for me. When that happened, we kind of revamped and redid what we were going to do, knowing what our strengths were, trying to camouflage our weaknesses. And the rest of the season, starting off with New Richmond, we would not kind of just changed our lineup. We lost Rex, to that shoulder injury. So we had to kind of revamp again. And, listening to you guys throughout the year on the podcast, we aren't overly complicated to figure out, but our formula kind of does work for us. And when we face these good teams like Springs, New Richmond, whoever, my thing is, especially with the last line change, if I can go best on best, I'm confident that these guys can compete. And it was a matter of finding those next 5 to 7 guys with the same compete level that I was looking for to, accept their role, accept what I was asking them to do. And I couldn't be happy with what they did. Early in the season, somebody said, how do you feel about your second line's production? If my second line, plus or minus is even, I'm ecstatic, and so that's kind of how we ran our year.
Well, you guys, I've never seen a high school hockey team in Wisconsin do this. Once Rex went down and you kind of reshuffled everything around, you had 2 5-man lines. You didn't
Yep.
have a first line of forwards and a first line of defense and a second line of forwards and a second line of defense. You had 2 groups of 5. I've never seen a high school hockey team do that. Is that just you knew that those 5 top against top, you were going to win most matchups and your second line could play defense? Or, what went into to really locking those 5 guys together?
It started in Mosinee, kind of when Rex went down and we were having a tight game in the first period and we needed a spark. The first half of the year, I had Jonah running on our second line, knowing that, that matchup was advantageous for us. Jonah can produce a lot of points basically on his own. You put him against somebody's second line and he's going to thrive, but we needed a spark. He and Jet play well together. And so, throwing those 2 guys together, I think we ended up with 3 or 4 goals, in the second and third period. I kind of have my formula for what I look for in a line. And my philosophy was, especially in practice, if I can find 5 guys to compete against what I think is one of the better first lines in the state, that's only going to make them better. And if we practice really hard and make practice harder than the games, those kids are just going to get better throughout the year. And then if I can have, those, 1 or 2 extra guys when we need a blow, they're my first guys in on PK. if I can find those guys to embrace that role, they may not get as many ice touches, but it's going to mean something. I did not necessarily have to be 3 lines deep to be successful.
All right, without giving away any trade secrets, I mean Jonah Dickens and Jet and those guys can fly. I
Yep.
mean, is there I mean back in the day there used to be like overspeed training or and different things or power skating. I mean, are those guys just naturally faster? Is just something you do that? I mean, because they're just like constantly getting behind the other team's defense. And Jonah
Jonah,
Dickens made some good defensemen look silly.
he
Yeah.
goes around defensemen like they aren't there.
Yep. And it's one of those things where when it works, it's beautiful. When it's not, you got to kind of get him back on the rails, because it's like, hey, buddy, it's okay. It's not a matter of if, it's when, you're going to go at some point. I took Jet one year to go over when they had Jenny and Rob Potter over coaching at the Gamblers, and he played a year with them, and it was as much for him as it was for me. I wanted to be a better coach, and so I went and watched those guys and what they did skating wise, and then I brought that back to Tomahawk. I had a guy that I went to college with that coached with the Minnesota Blades, and we'd see them throughout the spring and summer in tournaments and see what they were doing. And I knew him well enough where I picked his brain as far as practice structure and things like that. If you ask my kids, my practices are probably really boring, but they're really tough. And like, we don't condition ever. We don't skate lines. We don't do anything like that. We go for about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, and we don't stop. And I think that helps us in that second and third period as far as, their stamina. When you look at what my first line did kind of in the last 4 minutes of multiple games, strategically taking a timeout here and there. But speed wise, our first 30 minutes is nothing but skating.
I think the last thing we want to talk about with you for Tomahawk, the smallest program in the state, but you have reached the magical 6 points on the WIAA's competitive balance structure, meaning they will try to move you up to Division One. There is an appeals process, and I think at least once Tomahawk has a good chance of appealing. If you go to state or win state again next year, it might be tougher. But if they decide to move you up, do you think that your AD and your administration will appeal?
That's a good question. The WIA and the powers that be are going to make that decision. They've got those rules in place with the points for competitive balance and everything else. I think there's a lot of factors that go into that. I honestly think that the 2 divisions was made specifically for teams like Tomahawk. It's one of those things where, we're going to be up for a couple years, we may be down for a couple years, and that's why they put that, the 2 and 3 year, time frame on this. When you look at it, though, it's can teams like Tomahawk with 2 lines, scratching a JV team together, can we compete with the parochial schools and the larger public schools night in and night out? On a given night, yes. But when you look at that section 1, that's a gauntlet. You guys have been talking about that all year, and anything can happen. But for us, if they move us up to Division One, we have to seriously look at our season schedule to make sure that we're prepared when it comes time for seeding and everything else to have that competitive schedule in there, specifically conference games. Are we going to appeal it? I think that we'll explore that possibility, obviously. Like you said, if we end up having success again, it becomes harder to argue. But as we talked off air, it's not like, I graduate Austin Lamer and I get Austin Lamer coming back in. It's not apples to apples. And so I think that, WIA will take a look at that kind of aspect of it and make a reasonable decision on it. If they move us up, we'll adapt. If we stay in Division Two, I think that we do our best to try to get back there.
No, not really. Coach, congratulations. Boy, it was the first time I saw your team this year down at state tournament. Boy, I'll tell you what, I really come away impressed with them. They really look good.
They're a lot of fun to watch.
Yes, I see
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah. Speaking of MJ said it's the first time he saw you. I have a confession to make. We made you a game of the week early in the season, and it was the first time I think it was the first time you'd been a game of the week
Ever.
since we've been doing this. But I went up there. I hadn't been up there in a long time, and went up there, and there were some guys, tailgating your parking lot,
Yeah.
having a good time before the game. I went into what used to be the entrance, and I'm sure those guys tailgating in the parking lot said, how long is it going to take those jokers to realize that that's not the entrance to the rink? That's just a meeting room. And unfortunately, we were in there far too long. I'm sure they were laughing out in the parking lot before we realized, I don't think this is the entrance to the rink, and we got to go out and go. And we found the real entrance, and yeah, it was kind of embarrassing one, but only the guys tailgating in the parking lot playing cornhole, wherever they're doing out
Yeah.
there. You probably know who they are because they do it probably
I do.
before every game.
Yeah.
But yeah, they saw that, and we felt kind of silly.
Yeah, I was gonna say I haven't, I went up for your game against Springs, which was a fantastic game, and I hadn't been to Sarah Park since I played there in 1997.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's as much as it's changed, it's very much the same. And it's I think, when you look, especially at that Springs game on a Saturday, the way that we were able to get a good crowd in there, uh, you know, things have been changing in Tomahawk over the last couple of years. The excitement in the community, especially after this weekend, is huge. Youth numbers continue to grow, which is great. And a lot of it, I'm not, you know, telling you guys too many kudos, but a lot of it is the fact that Wisconsin prep hockey's taken off too. I can't tell you how many people, that I know, out of the state that are checking the scores, checking in on us and everything else. And so, Wisconsin hockey, the more exposure we get in those games of the week and, keeping stats on all the kids, it's a great thing for the kids. It's a great thing for hockey. And again, we're always kind of chasing Minnesota and everything else, but it's a good thing. And so thanks for all you guys do.
Coach, it's a great story. I mean, it's possibly, I would say, the story of the year, what you guys accomplished, and what you've done is given every small town program in the state that hope, that, realization that, hey, it can happen even to us. And at the same time, you've maybe removed the excuses that, hey, we're too small to do anything. So, I mean, yeah, you guys have really done everyone in Division Two a favor, which is probably not good for you because there's more teams coming after you now, but it's definitely going to be good for the sport.
Well,
Great
yeah,
year.
I mean, that's really what we want, right? We want people, putting together the best schedule they can. We want to be producing good players out of Wisconsin and sending kids on beyond high school. And so, I I hope that, more teams, and I look at we've had a good rivalry with like Somerset through youth hockey. Uh Coach Larson over at New Richmond has been very, gracious and helpful and everything else, like, and stealing pages out of his playbook and what they've done. That's all of this coaching stuff. Nothing's new, it's just recycled, and you make it your own, and you hope that, it just helps everyone up their game a little bit, become more competitive, and then we get awesome hockey in Wisconsin.
Well said.
All right, I got one last thing to say. Just I don't want to. I'm going to spoil it. Our player of the tournament in D2 is Braden Lamer.
Good choice.
You don't have pictures on your roster pages. We
I don't know
really
how to do it.
we really need a picture of Braden Lamer to go on our thing for the announcing of the player of the week. So if you
Sounds
could
good.
come up with a picture of Braden Lamer, I'd appreciate it.
Do I become one of the cats that need to be herded? Because I'll send it to Junior and he'll help me out.
that's perfectly fine.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to talk to Coach Shane Dickson of the Bay Area Ice Bears. He is assistant coach on the team. Coach Buchan is currently traveling on business, so we'll let Dan lead.
Coach Buchan coaches too many teams.
I would agree. He's an amazing man.
All right, yeah, Coach. Congratulations. Obviously, an unbelievable season for your team. And I guess the first question for me is losing at the state tournament a year ago. I mean, that always provides kind of a unique and I think really powerful motivation. But for your group this year, it seemed like it was really personal, and it was really like from day one they wanted to be in the championship game, and they needed it to be the Storm for their revenge or their whatever to be complete. Is that accurate?
I think that's very well said. Really with Mike and myself being new to the program this year as first year coaches, obviously we were aware of what had happened last year and who they played, and we followed the team. But I would have to say, those girls are the ones that really pushed each other, knowing that they wanted to be there, and that was the team that they wanted to play. It was interesting even in practice when we were going into a game against them, or Fox Cities has always been a rivalry, those types of things, and just the way that they would really push each other and pump each other up, knowing there's a big game coming up.
So I saw you guys play more than a few times this year. I think early in the year I saw Superior play, and I thought they were one of the best teams I'd seen in a long time as far as moving the puck and players that really seem to be aware of what's going on around them. And actually, honestly, the first time I saw you guys play, I thought, wow, they're really good, but they seem like they're a little loose with the puck to me. And then as the year went on, the more I watched you, I was like, your team played with so much confidence, so much awareness. I thought the unselfishness was just really like it felt like every time somebody moved the puck, whoever got the puck, they weren't looking to shoot first. They were looking to see if there was somebody else who was in a better spot than they were. And I just thought that, the way that how disciplined they were, the structure that you guys ran, and just how unselfish and how aware they were was just head and shoulders above every other team, girls team in the state this year.
And I would agree with that. Once again, as us being first year coaches, we knew we were going into a team that we had a lot of skill. They were there last year. We didn't lose a whole lot with seniors moving on, but at the same time, we don't want to rely upon that, right? And really, we're trying. When we came in, that was what we continued to talk about a lot, was culture and bringing everybody into the mix. Not just your top players. You're always going to have those that, like Faye Brunke is amazing, and Emily Bill and Julianne Bradford, our top line, are great players. But we knew that if we wanted to take it all the way, we can't rely on one line. It really has to be a team effort. And I think, with a little bit of our, I guess, input as well as their leadership, really it brought that team together. And I appreciate hearing you say that you saw that, because I feel like Mike and I talk about that as well, from the way the start of the season started, and we were really relying on probably those top three players, and then with the way the second half of the season went, we were getting scoring from all over the place, the lines as well as defense. So it was really great to see them progress like that.
One more for me, I guess. So I know with Mike, this was his first year coaching girls, having been on the boys' side all along. And after the state game against Cap City, I asked him about the difference between coaching boys and girls, and he basically said to me that I came in here and my goal was I'm not going to change anything. And he said he just complimented your team and the players so much on how hard they worked and how they, bought into what he wanted, and just, it came together for y'all. But had you coached girls before?
Yes, I did. Yeah, and actually, both him and I coached together in youth hockey with the Green Bay Area Youth Hockey Association. So we'd done it together for a few years. I've been on a 3-year hiatus that I hadn't been coaching, and kind of got back into it here. And I would definitely compliment what Mike said is, this group, really, they wanted it. They knew what they needed to do. They came to practice ready to go, came to games that way. If anything, we would joke a little bit about, it's a little bit different, if you want to say, in like the men's to the women's mindset maybe before a game and the fun that they can have, but they sure know how to split that switch. And then once it's game time, they're going to work, because there are a few times that we were a little nervous and trying to get them in a routine before games, and okay, time to put the, get that mindset, ready to go for the game. But really, it didn't take all that much coaxing by any means. They really did know how to turn it on when it needed to be.
Yeah, I would say in my experience, like getting girls to prepare before a game was a little bit like herding cats sometimes. I mean, they can be so unbelievably loose and then just come out and just play the way they always play. It's that part I found was very different for sure.
Yeah, no, and we would definitely agree to that, especially been our experience over the course of the last, like 8-10 years with coaching a lot together. We found that as well.
Coach, let me ask you this. When I got to catch the end of the championship game on Saturday, 8-0. Was that really surprising? I mean, I looked at that score, it's like, are you kidding?
I would say yes, definitely. We thought it was going to be a hard fought, tight checking game, and really it was. Not to say that. I would say even the time that we uh, played the Storm previously, it was a tight game as well. Sometimes it's those bounces. I thought we did really well with, even jumping on rebounds and buried a few that way. Um, the night before, or well, I shouldn't say the night before, the Thursday before, so 2 days before, uh, when we played, I think we had a couple breakaways that we didn't score on, and we had some people say it, and well, did that person maybe have their best game or whatever it be? But I mean, what I said to the girls, or what we kind of said to them is like, I mean, the puck's in their end. That means they're not scoring in, or they're not in our end and being worried about anybody scoring against us. So it doesn't always have to be about scoring the goal, but like, putting the pressure on and having them, in their end and hemmed in and moving the puck. As you said, they're always looking to their teammates to see who's in the best position. And we talked a lot about like feeling the pressure. So in every, especially power play, in every instance, you're trying to create that 2-on-1. And so feeling the pressure as somebody comes to you, that's when you have to be moving the puck, down to somebody or across to somebody. And I think that really over the course of the year stuck in, and like I said, that what we felt, that progression that came along, and moving the puck and working as a team.
You mentioned that it was the girls themselves who, were the drive to get back, well, get even, or would say what Wisconsin. I mean, how much of that has to do with your senior leadership? Like, I mean, we like, well, a name familiar for us here in central Wisconsin, Julianne Bradford. I mean, I know her grandfather, Don Bradford, who was like big in Region 2 hockey in central Wisconsin, for as long as I've been involved in hockey. And, his son, Andy, who is, Julianne's dad, I mean, he's been involved in hockey. He's like third generation hockey people there. I mean, how much does that senior leadership count?
Oh, yeah, incredibly. Like she's incredible. I mean, from like just what you're saying, I think that is a huge part of the game, and like the culture that they've created. Admittedly, I don't know if Julianne would want me to say this or not, but I mean, after that game, I gave her a hug, and there's highs and lows through the season, and I just said to her, I'm like, you you made this culture. Like, she is just so good at really bringing the girls all together. And it's like a job, right? You've got all kinds of personalities to deal with, and she is fantastic at really getting everybody on the same page. It wasn't necessarily us ask, like, we'd do, say we watch a previous game or things like that, or go over different plays. But I mean, there was one point where I believe she asked all the girls to come in and write a little note. Why do they play hockey? Do you know what I mean? And they stuck it on the board, and like, who are you playing for? And that wasn't us pushing them to do those types of things. Obviously, we appreciate and loved seeing it, but I mean, Julianne is just an amazing leader. She really is. And, I look forward to seeing how she progresses at the next level. I really foresee her going on and doing some great things.
Yeah, I think every coach would echo the same thing, that when your leaders are stepping up and really guiding the team and enforcing the rules, whatever you want to call it, and the traditions that we honor as a team, and embracing the culture and modeling it, that's when, as a coach, you can really just stand back and it's so much fun to watch when a team really comes together like that and they know exactly what they're after. And it sounds like, pretty much almost a perfect season for you guys. And that doesn't happen very often.
No, agreed. For us to, both Mike and I, in the first season to come into, we're very fortunate. Joe Girardin and his staff had done a great job with the girls in the past. And, obviously that they had that chip on their shoulder with the loss the previous year. And I would even say, at 4-0, I believe it was, going into the dressing room from second to third, we were even stating, let's focus puck, keep it out of our zone, in their zone. It's not necessarily about scoring more goals, but really playing, just good hockey and moving the puck. And as you guys probably saw, I would say the third period got a little bit chippy, and I think it brought a little more edge to the game. And they're like, we're not backing down, and we're going to keep going. So it was really nice to see them react that way, like just how much it meant to that team that we're pulling it off this year, and we're taking it all the way.
Yeah, I actually did notice that at one point you were playing some of your bench players and things got a little nasty out there, and like you put your top line out there and say, knock this off.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just amazing to see them really step up like that. They did. And even to go past the first lab, because the later goals really came from our second and third line, so it was nice to see them contributing and getting in there and mucking it up as well for their teammates.
Anybody else? Otherwise, I mean, just, congratulations on an absolutely great season. And you guys have a lot of your weapons coming back. You're losing some important ones, but you got a lot coming back. So I think your, chances of getting back in the mix look pretty good again for next year.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate that. And I mean, it's a great group of girls. It's always sad when those that move on. And I do agree. I think we have a good group that'll be coming back, and now it's a matter of them stepping up and fulfilling, stepping into a few of these others skates that have showed them the way over the course of time. So we're really looking forward to it.
All right. Well, thank you, Coach Dickson.
All right. Well, thank you guys. And I want to echo the comments of the coach before and prior as well, too, just to say thanks for all that you guys do in getting, Wisconsin hockey recognized the way it is. So I just want to say much appreciated.
Thank you.
Joining us now, the head coach of the Division I state champion Madison Edgewood Crusaders, Pete Rothering. Pete, congratulations. And boy, you guys went on quite a run, and it ended with a state championship against a team that was looking for its third straight championship. Wow, what an exciting season for you guys, and to top it off with a state championship.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, obviously, it was super exciting. Really proud of the guys. Everybody has that kind of same goal to start the year, and we've had plenty of seasons where we didn't get to that spot, and so to finally get that over that hump and watch the guys enjoy it and be rewarded for all the effort they put in was fun to watch. And yeah, some good teams along the way, including Notre Dame in the end there. They were it's a great program, great team, and they won 2 in a row. And Brookfield the night before was a heck of a game. So it was really fun and fun to watch the guys be rewarded for their work.
I was concerned when you played Brookfield and you went into the overtimes that, would you guys have enough gas in the tank to take on a Notre Dame who looked so good on Friday?
Yeah.
And I kind of wondered, you guys going to have enough to challenge them? And boy, you sure did. You proved me wrong.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that. I think, there used to be, when it was just one division, there used to be 8 teams, and we would watch that. And in 08, we made it to the final. And I said to the boys actually before the game, I said, hey guys, listen, when it used to be 3 games, the first game sometimes was a little tough because you have some nerves and some of that kind of that nervous energy, and it settles into your legs and you're a little heavy. And the third day is tough because you play 3 in a row and they're tough games, and obviously you wear out a little bit. But the best day was always the second day. I said, today's our second day. 3 overtimes or not, we're gonna have great legs today, and we did. Like, we had a good jump. So it ended up being fine that way. And part of it too is we've got some depth and we were able to use that. And I have what I would call 2 first lines, and so from a matchup perspective and playing time perspective, I don't have to wear out 3 guys, from a forward perspective. And so it was that's a luxury that we had this year that made a big difference. And but yeah, we had a pretty good jump on Saturday.
What struck me on Saturday is that I think, I mean, no offense, I think Notre Dame had more, I want to say, top end skill players than Edgewood did, but you guys outworked them at every single puck battle up and down the ice. When 2 players were going into the boards, Notre Dame was looking over their shoulder, and Edgewood had their head down chasing the puck. All day long, you guys just outworked them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I appreciate that because that's something we talk about. I would respectfully probably disagree a little bit on the skill. I think honestly, I think early in the year we had a slow start, and I think it was because we relied on our skill a bit too much, and we needed to relearn how hard it is to win these games and to put the work in and the details. And we talked a ton about details and hard work, and understanding that when you get to these games, everybody's gonna be pretty skilled. Brookfield, Notre Dame, Wausau, and 15 other teams that we could have run into. And so I think, that was where we wanted to get to. And so I appreciate you recognizing that, because that was certainly a big part of our success at the end, was we were putting details in and we were working hard and winning races and being more physical. And then I think when you do that stuff, then your skill takes over, and our skill is pretty high, I thought, relative to our state here. And but yeah, it was hard work, I think, that made the difference for sure.
I was struck by in your game against Brookfield, your 8th leading scorer, Dylan Lenz, had a fantastic game. Besides the goal and the assist he just had a fantastic night in the offensive zone, on the forecheck, in the neutral zone. He was good like the whole game, and that's your 8th leading scorer.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple of things, I guess, there. Our depth was really strong this year. It was a big difference for us. Our depth at forward was pretty incredible, really. And then Dylan, I could talk for a long time about Dylan. He went through a really, really hard situation the last 2 weeks. He lost his brother 2 weeks ago now, or a little bit less than that, in a ski accident. His brother had played for us in 2020. Well, he's graduated in 2020. He was a captain for us. So Dylan had just a ton on his shoulders, and playing with a ton of emotion, but he channeled it so well. And honestly, the Verona sectional final and the state tournament 2 games were the best 2 games he played in his life. He was a huge part of our success. He scored 2 in the sectional final. He scored, what'd you say, 1 and 1 in the state semifinal?
Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me, but beyond that, he was physical. He was hard on pucks. He was fast. He was so dialed in, and big part of our run at the end here.
I listened to this weekly podcast who was talking about how weak the Madison area hockey is this season, and they talked about the number 4 seed in, in the Division Two was from the Madison area. The number 4 seed in the girls Madison area. Number 4 seed in Division One is the Madison area, and Division Two, the McFarland, the Tomahawk top skaters. I mean, they just ran roughshod all over McFarland. So, according to this podcast against Brookfield, Connor Hillig and
I'm
Simon.
Cooper Simon, we're just going to run roughshod all over you guys, and you just like held them in check and just kind of made a fool of all those guys on that silly podcast.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The strength of sections and that sort of thing goes up and down from year to year, and sometimes it carries over for a few years. And yeah, if you look at the rankings, that obviously Section 1 up in the north there was really strong, and I'm not arguing that. But we've had really good years in our Section 2 where you've got an 8th seed that is a legitimate contender for a sectional championship type of thing, and so it goes from year to year and that sort of thing. But for us, we weren't real worried about that. We knew that we could play with anybody in the state. We had seen them. We just weren't good enough early in the year, and so really for us, it was a focus on just getting to where we wanted to be. And I think from the start of the year, we had a goal to win a state championship, and we felt that was a reality. And I think we probably were under the radar a bit all year because of our start, which is understandable from I guess a media perspective. But we knew what we had in the room. We just had to kind of, find our ceiling and maximize a little bit. And to our guys' credit, they did. They put so much work in. They were coachable. They worked hard in practice. Their compete level in practice is unbelievable. Eventually, it took a little bit longer than we hoped as coaches, but we found that ceiling, and it ended up being what we wanted to be, which was a state championship. So yeah, the seeding, the sections, the whatever, even the seeding for the state tournament, going into it, I figured we'd be a 4 based on just a head-to-head with Notre Dame in December. But to me, that game is it's just one of 24. It's a learning point. It was early. We weren't good enough yet. But we were playing really well at the end of the year. The rankings at the end of the year, we would have been, second in the seeding and whatever, but it just didn't matter to us. We just were, whoever's next is fine with us. And we had to win 2 hockey games, and we played really well. So it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, in the 2024 half of the schedule, you guys were 5-5, and in the 2025 half of the schedule, you just had the one loss on January 4th against Brookfield. So you guys figured it out right around the turn of the calendar, and you won your last 12 regular season games, and then obviously all your playoff games.
Yeah, it was in our room, it was a little different than those numbers, just because we would see growth, but it took some time to get the results, and so we went up to Chippewa Hudson the first weekend and got punched in the mouth, and honestly, I thought just skill and skating, we were fine in those games. We outshot them, outchanced them. But those teams they play hard and they're physical and they block shots, and we just weren't tough enough to win those games yet. And then we got better in December. The Notre Dame tournament was a good learning point for us. And then the Brookfield game, actually, we played pretty well. We were short 5 guys that night. We had a kind of a bad flu bug going through the team at that point. So we were short 5 guys, including Davis Hallblad, who was one of our top goal scorers. So actually that night, I felt good about the effort that night. The result wasn't what we wanted, but we were right there with one of the top teams in the state at the time. And so then we went on a run, but we hadn't, to be fair, our run didn't include Brookfield and Notre Dame and top 5 teams. And so I'm sure people were questioning that and externally, but we felt good about how we were playing, and we kind of kept building, and the guys kept working, and they had a goal in mind. And to be fair, to credit them, they kept working towards it, and obviously it paid off. So it was really fun to watch that process. And it's funny because you can go through that same process, and if Brookfield scores a goal in overtime, then we're talking about a nice season that we just came up short. And it takes just occasionally some bounces, but just that work at the end there to get the state championship. And is fun to watch them. They would be rewarded. It was a really fun run.
So this was Edgewood's eighth time in the state tournament, and the 3rd time you got a crack at the title game, and the first time that you won. What's the mood like back at school?
Yeah, it's It's awesome. The guys are pumped, and a lot of people reaching out. A lot of alumni. I mean, we're getting texts. I'm kind of a conduit, right, just for the program. It's not coming to me. It's like coming to Edgewood hockey, right? I'm just kind of the guy that gets the text. But all these alumni that reaching out that have played, they were in those games you just mentioned. They played in the tournament, whatever, and then so they're all following along. And I've got what do we have? We have three guys playing D1 hockey right now, and one playing at St. Norbert's, Carter Hotman at St. Norbert's, playing high level hockey, reaching out to me, going, "Hey, unbelievable! Like, so excited for you guys." They were texting beforehand saying good luck, and then after the game saying, "Awesome, so proud of you guys." And yeah, super cool to be part of it and be part of that community, and to hear some of that messaging. But yeah, it's a long time coming. I was joking I might have been fired if we didn't win it this year after all the times we had a shot at it. But yeah, we got over the hump this time, so pretty cool.
So did just this weekend, I know you were a little bit busy, but did you get the chance to see JJ Weebush's game winner for Penn State?
Yeah, so JJ was one of the guys. He texted me. He texted us. So we had a little video actually that we reached out to all of our alumni and said, "Hey, the guys are going to state. A lot of emotions going in the room right now. If you want to send a quick video, please do." And so a bunch of alumni sent a video back, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever. And he was one of them. Jake Schmaltz at North Dakota, Carter Hotman at St. Norbert's, like I mentioned, and just saying, "Hey, good luck, boys," or whatever. And JJ was one of those. And then I saw his hat trick. I saw his game winner, which made Sports Center. And then the next night, I don't know if you saw it, but he got a goal when they beat Michigan, and he got interviewed afterwards. And in his interview, he said, he answered some questions, and then they were talking about the goal he scored the night before, and then he said it was like right after their game, so probably 9:02 p.m. and we're probably late in our game, and he said, shout out my Edgewood boys, they're in the state championship game right now. I don't know how it's going, but I got to check on them, type of thing. And then he texted me at 9:11 saying awesome job or whatever. So those guys are dialed in watching it, and it was pretty fun.
Pete, talking about the emotions of, winning it, and talk a little bit about Drew and what he went through losing his brother. And I know it was probably a bit of a bittersweet win for you also. Your dad passed away in August, and he, has been had been the face of Edgewood hockey for 40 some years, 44 years. I think he was part of the coaching staff there. And maybe just talk a little bit about, his influence on you, and how, if that was a difficult also time for you to, for him not to be there when you'd hope that when that finally comes for you, you'd hope your dad would be there. I know mine wasn't either when I finally got it done, but yeah, maybe just talk about him a bit.
Yeah, yeah, it was emotional. As far as my dad goes, yeah, he passed away in August. He had a brain tumor that he was fighting for a few years, and he was a coach and a teacher at Edgewood for 40 plus years. And he coached me and my brothers at Edgewood, and then he coached with us also for a while. Both my brothers were coaching with me back in like the kind of my start, so it was 6 to 16 maybe, and then they had younger kids playing hockey, and so they haven't been coaching the last few years. And then my dad kept coaching up through COVID, and then he kind of was in retirement age, and COVID hit, and so he pulled away a little bit, and then he got sick. But even then, he was at every game, and I would talk to him after every game, and he would tell us what I was doing wrong, and I would try to correct it. And but he was super passionate about Edgewood hockey and the community, and put so much time and effort into it over the years. And so it's a big part of our family, and we take a lot of pride in that. We have made unbelievable relationships over the years, our family, with so many alumni and families of alumni and stuff. And so it was hard, not to have him around this year. There's a lot of games, especially early on, where we would play a game, and then my first gut in the car was to call him, and then obviously didn't. But we have a seat for him at our rink that stays vacant during our games, and I miss him a bunch. But he did so much for our program. We built a new home last year in Verona. He was a part of that process, and just everything that's been built. The program has been so strong for so long, and he was a huge part of that. So that was definitely hard to not have him there. But also, there's the other side of it, is like the year he's gone, he's sort of looking down, and we took care of business. So that was pretty neat that way. And then Dylan's brother Drew passed away, as I mentioned, and that was more recent, and obviously a different level of tragedy in terms of his age. And He was a captain for us in 2020, and it was, that was really hard for all of us, Dylan especially. But the way the boys responded, we talked a lot about it, and it's not something I've been through before as a coach. And how do you manage that, and how do you help 16 and 17-year-olds figure it out, right? Because it's obviously it's hard, but it's not, hockey is the least of their worries at that point. It's not more important, and hockey's not more important, and but it's the next thing. Like, hockey was next for us, and so the next day we played Verona, and we talked about it in the morning, and I just said, guys, I think the best way for us to proceed is our next thing is a hockey game, and the best way to take care of your friend Dylan and honor Drew is to go play a hockey game, and take your emotions and turn it into focus, and play the best hockey game you can to honor him, and to take care of your friend Dylan, who may or may not play tonight. We didn't know at the time, and he ended up playing, as you mentioned, and he scored 2 goals and was unbelievable. But it was under terrible circumstances, an unbelievable ride emotionally for the boys. But how they handled it was incredible, and something I've never been a part of, and I'll never forget.
I guess that explains why Dylan very obviously got the largest cheer from the Edgewood student section during the introductions of both nights.
Yeah, we have a really tight community, and everybody knew obviously what was going on, and Dylan's sort of a fan favorite anyway, just because his personality is so good, and he's such a team guy, and easy to love and to be friends with, and that sort of thing. But of course, given what he was going through and his family was going through, yeah, that drove that for sure. There was a loud, there was a cheer for everybody, and his was by far the loudest, and for good reason.
Couple of things for you here, Pete. First off, in my time with Wisconsin prep hockey and high school hockey, your dad was always one of the most gracious people when it come to an interview or asking a question. He was always had time, and he was always very kind about it. I'm sorry to hear about him. This is the first I've heard about it, and he was a fantastic man, and you guys have my condolences.
Thank you.
But second, when you think about it, you look at that sectional final, there's some bragging rights there, man. That building there, you guys play at the same building. I mean, you're right next door to each other, and there's bragging rights there. And this year you get to get one over on them.
Yeah, no, we did. I appreciate your comments on my dad. Verona's been, they've been a great program for I have to think about this a little, probably 20 years now. And they've, they won a couple state titles, and they've been one of our rivals, probably our biggest rival for most of that 20 years. And we've lost to them in big games, and we've beaten them in big games, and it kind of goes back and forth. And this year we were on the right end of it from our standpoint. So yeah, there's no question that those are big games to win, and you get some bragging rights locally, and that's fun, and we enjoyed that for sure. But yeah, it's been a good rivalry for a number of years now, for sure.
I was surprised when I saw the score of that game, 6-0. Like, wow, you guys really came to play that day. And obviously with Dylan, he had some motivation, and you guys wanted to show that, hey, you know what? Here we come. We're rolling, and we're ready to take that next step.
Yeah, I mean, we played really well that night, and you guys know how hockey goes. That we beat them 1-0 a month before that, or whatever it was. But we felt like if we were on, that we should get through our section, and then of course with what was happening in our community, our family, I didn't know how our guys would respond, and so that was a concern. But they channeled it so well and focused so well, and when our guys are dialed in, which they were the last 2 weeks, I think they could be really good, and which they proved. So it was, yeah, the score, we pulled away a little bit, but we jumped on them pretty quickly, and the momentum kind of built, and it was hard for them to recover from it. But our guys were going pretty good that night, and this past weekend as well.
Onto something a little lighter.
Yeah.
Hayden played really well in the tournament. Do you wish you had spent more time taking shots on him from the far blue line?
Yeah, I didn't even talk to him about it, actually. I've talked to a few others about it just after the fact, and it's sort of ironic because I said, I think I said in the post-game interview, I said he's been the best goalie in the state for 2 months, and that goal it's a 1 in 1,000 thing. He lost track of his pipe probably, and it snuck in there, and you've seen goals in the NHL level where a full icer bounces in, and it just happens, right?
I mean,
And
that's what Chris Osgood was known for the
yeah,
entirety of his
yeah.
for the whatever however long his NHL career was. He's known for giving up multiple goals from all the way across the ice.
Yeah, 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 and it just things like that can happen. It can happen to anybody. What I was so proud of though was, he had been so good for 2 months, and we had so much confidence in him, and the boys had so much confidence, and which changes the way you play right in front of them. The guys can play more free, and they're not worried about it. And when that went in, our guys were just all on the bench. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. They were like, "Hey, pick them up. Next shift, let's go." And they went and tapped them on the pads, and I think we scored. I can't remember, but very quickly after that, so the response was unbelievable. And then Hayden's response. If you take that goal away, that's an unbelievable game for him. And you go into overtime, and he had a few huge saves against their top guys on a 2-on-1 or a breakaway situation. That if you don't get those, we're not talking today. And so his response to obviously a goal he would take back, he would want back, was great. He had an unbelievable tournament, other than just the one little bounce there that
I mean, he was a finalist for the Kirk Dobbin Spec Award this year, so I mean, the state knows how good he is.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we wouldn't trade him for anybody. He had a funny, not funny, just an interesting sort of career, because he was a really good goalie coming out of Bantams. He had won a state title as a Bantam, but he sat behind Rowan White for a couple years, and Rowan, as you guys know, was a really good goaltender for us. And so Hayden got some games, but he wasn't the starter, and so this was his first year as the guy. Um, and it took him a minute just to sort of, he was good early, but just not great, and he was great late. And he just took a little time to figure out how to be that guy, and have that confidence, and play to his ability. And once he did, and this obviously coincides with our run, the last 2 months he was awesome. And other than the one goal you just mentioned, I don't remember a goal that I thought, oh, should have had that one. He was so good, just a rock, and a huge part of the run that we went on.
Well, we had, Kirk Dobbinspec in our suite at the turn watching the games, and he said he works with your goal like once a week. He said first thing next year he's going to work on shots from the far blue line.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's good. I'm glad Dauber's taking notes.
Hey, Pete, one of the things you talked about, the shot from the far blue line that went in, but you guys kind of got a little bit of one too on a goal that I'm trying to think of who scored it from just like behind the blue line, behind the goal line, I should say. It was a really, really sharp angle. It was probably a low percentage shot. This is back in it's back in Friday's game.
In the Brookfield game, yeah, Matty Richter. He was
Matt Richter, that's who it was.
he was probably at the bottom of the circle. There was some traffic in front of their goalie. I think their goalie went down because he wasn't sure where the puck was going next. I think he was thinking the puck might move to the middle, and Matty saw it, and there was a small window on the very short side from the bottom of the circle, and he sniped it pretty good. So it wasn't the same sort of bounce. It was actually a pretty nice snipe, but yeah, it was a tough angle for sure.
Just like Tomahawk, we talked to Coach Reilly earlier, and Bay Area. You guys were in the state tournament last year, and you lost. And your loss was to Notre Dame. What did that loss to Notre Dame do for your guys this year coming back into the tournament?
Yeah, I think that experience makes a big difference. We felt like we had a good chance last year, and obviously the game didn't go our way, and it's just little things. I think that game specifically, I think we had a good game plan. I think our guys were ready. We were playing well, and in the first period, we were just a little bit, probably frazzled by the environment and the energy and the nerves a little bit. And we lost some detail, and they scored 3 quick ones on us in the first period. And then after that, we were really good. We dialed back in, and we pushed, and we had a goal, and we had really good chances, but we came up short. And so we talked about it a little bit actually going into the weekend here, because we had a lot of guys that played in that game that were back, and just said, "Hey guys, we've been there. It's just the next hockey game, and of course there's a bunch of energy in the building, a lot of excitement and that sort of thing, but what will win you the hockey game is the same detail, the same work, the same compete level that has gotten you here." And so they were much better at just sort of focusing in on those details and playing the game this time around. And so I think that experience helped them a bunch, because it's just you don't know it till you get there, right? And you see it and you feel it, and some guys respond differently to that. And the first time's always a little harder. Of course, we had a few guys that played their freshman year. I guess our seniors did, but as a whole, they had seen it last year, and so I think it helped a bunch and helped them prepare for the first game this year, and we're more ready for it.
Well, and like I don't know what it is, but like the last 5, 6, 7 years, nobody jumps on mistakes like Notre Dame does.
Hmm.
Nobody scores 3 goals really quickly the way Notre Dame does when a team lets off the gas. You saw it on Friday against Wausau West because there were large chunks of that game where Wausau West was the better team on the ice, and then their defensive coverage would break down, and all of a sudden Notre Dame has scored 2, 3 goals.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you guys, Saturday, you played a fantastic game.
Yeah, thanks. We felt so too. We had a couple power play goals we let up, but I thought for the most part even I think they ended up with 26 or whatever shots it was, 24, I can't remember, but it was a lot, a lot of perimeter. We took care of the middle of the ice pretty well. Our coverage was really good. We didn't have many breakdowns. I think I was asked after the game maybe about the game plan and how the guys responded. And I said the guys were spot on. Like we were pretty specific about what we thought would work against them, and our guys were so detailed and so focused that there weren't many breakdowns, and they didn't get a lot of good looks. And when they did, Hayden was there to take care of business. So it was pretty complete effort, and again, fun to watch the boys.
I got one last question for you here. You guys played. Obviously you played several games at the Coliseum. How much better is the atmosphere at Bob Suter's Legacy Rink? It doesn't hold as many people, but just having them packed in there and just screaming. How does that atmosphere affect the players as to the cavernous Coliseum?
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about that. Of course, people have different opinions on things in terms of the venue. For me, it'd be great to have the same sort of environment with 500 or 1,000 more seats or whatever. But relative to or compared to the Coliseum and the 8,000 seats and half of them being empty, this is unbelievable. Like I was telling, we walked out for the final game out at the tunnel between 3 and 4 there to our bench, and the lights are off. They got the highlights from the night before on with the announcer going, and he's doing a great job, and the music in the background. Super cool video. Lights are off. The spotlights are going, and then all of a sudden, our guys come flying out of the tunnel, and like I got the chills watching it. That experience is something I'll never forget. Um, I would not, I would not replace that for them. If there's another venue that has a few more seats, I can do the same thing. Great, but that experience, that sort of environment, the noise in the facility, the energy in the facility, was so fun for the guys. And like I said, I got the chills watching it. It was super exciting. So it was cool.
You're talking about your alumni. Did you hear from Cody Strang or Tyler Sorensen, guys from your
Well,
2018?
both of them. Yep. Both of them texted me afterwards. We're super pumped. So as you know, they were in the state final in '08. We lost to Eau Claire 3-1. It was a really good hockey team. I think I told Cody. I'll have to text Ty too. I don't think I said to him, but I said I was 20, what was I 28, 29 then, something like that. And I just said I would love to coach your group again because I thought I knew what I was doing back then. But Dan, as you know, you learn something every year coaching. Now I've done it for a while, and probably could help myself a little bit in '08 with a really talented group. But yeah, they both reached out. I don't even know how many hundreds of texts from alumni and families of alum, and but both those guys reached out. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that coaching learning curve is pretty steep, and it definitely every year that you bank, you become a better coach. And yeah, I think back at like the first job I took up in Spooner and what I knew then compared to what I know now, and I thought I knew quite a bit back then, but
Yeah,
it just doesn't compare. Like there's just so much of it you can't learn unless you go through it. Like
yeah,
people can try to tell you about it and talk to you about it, but a lot of it you just gotta experience.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it's not even the hockey part. Like you learn some hockey things here and there, and you pick things up, but it's just how to deal with people and young men, and how to communicate. And it's like I thought when I was young coach, I was like, well, if I'm right, I'm right. And it's like that's not the point, right? They have to understand it. And if they don't understand it, you're not doing your job. And so it took, it takes some time to be better at it. And we had some good teams back then that I probably could have helped more than I do now. But yeah, it was fun to hear from those guys for sure. I love that they're still watching and tracking things, and they're pumped for the boys, and they're part of it too. Like they're part of this group, this alumni group, and our program, and we take a lot of pride in that. And I want those guys to come back for alumni games and to reach out and to be part of it, because they were a big part of what we did back then. And we finally got over the hump to get the big trophy for everybody to kind of see and share.
You look at those guys that were on that team, and then you look at them now. I want to use Tyler Sorensen as an example. Here he is now. I mean, he's moved on in life. I mean, he's in the medical field, and he's also a dad. I mean, he had triplets. Well, his wife had triplets, but holy smokes, time moves so fast, and it seemed like so long ago, but yet it really wasn't.
Yeah, it's incredible. Definitely makes me feel older. The guys I've coached have careers and kids, and their kids are starting to play hockey. And I actually remember my dad early in my head coaching career. So back again, 6, 7, 8, that time, 9, 10. We started getting guys coming through that were kids of guys that he had coached. And so it was his second generation of guys coming through. And I'm probably getting closer to that now. Maybe not quite yet, but a little closer. But yeah, it's unbelievable how fast it goes. I can't believe it's been 20 years for me. We've had so many good players come through, and good people and good families, and it's so fun to be part of it. Rewarding. Obviously the hockey part's awesome. But the other stuff is so rewarding to be, the relationships that you build and the people that you meet, and the connections, and it just carries on. It doesn't go away. And these people reach out when something like this happens. And yeah, it's awesome.
All right, thanks, Coach. It's been great talking to you. Congratulations again on a wonderful season. Hope to see you again next year. This time.
Yeah, I think I'll be back now, so I might not get fired. So yeah, no, I appreciate all the work you guys put in. It's fun, really fun, and you guys do a great job covering the high school level here, boys and girls, and so thank you guys for the coverage, and yeah, looking forward to next year.
I mean, there's a particular freshman on your team that would probably be quite annoyed if you got fired.
He'd probably like it, actually.
Oh yeah, I got someone who would probably like it if I didn't coach him too.
Yeah. I know how that feels. I try to be careful with them, but it's hard when you're that close.
I will say, Will Rothering and his line mate Hayden Kinsler, they do stand out on the ice because they are 5'4" and 5'2" according to the program.
Yeah, that might even be generous, but yeah, him and it's Hudson. Yeah, they both are nice little hockey players. And then Carter Rosenberg was their center. He was kind of their anchor to be a little muscle in the middle, but they did a nice job. As third line, they scored some points. And Huddy he had a big goal in the Brookfield game late. So they did a nice job. But yeah, they definitely stand out with their stature.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Absolutely, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate our time that all three of the coaches spent with us to pass over the state tournament, and congratulations to all three guys. I mean, it's a great accomplishment and something you'll probably never forget for a long, long, long time. Also, we have our players of the week, the state tournament edition. And who do you want to start out with? Burglar, who do you got for the player of the week?
Yes, for the Division II player of the week, surprisingly enough, it comes from Tomahawk, which was a Division II state championship, and he is a defenseman, and he has been overshadowed for much of the season by his older brother Austin. But Braden Lamer from Tomahawk is our Division II player of the week for Division II.
Okay, Dan, on the girls' side, who do you got?
Yeah, we're gonna go back to the state champs, and Faye Brunke, forward for Bay Area, had an outstanding state tournament, scoring 5 goals and 2 assists, and of course she scored 4 goals in the championship game, and I believe the first 2 of the game, she was very, very much determined that she wanted to see the Storm in that championship game, and she got them, and she definitely stepped it up and produced. So Faye Brunke is the state player of the week for the girls.
And Division One junior, who do you got?
The Division One state tournament player of the week is Owen Porter from Madison Edgewood. Edgewood had a very balanced scoring attack over the course of the tournament, but Porter didn't have any points against Brookfield. He had a goal and 2 assists against Notre Dame Academy, but his presence was felt every time he was on the ice, whether it was on the forecheck or working in the defensive zone for Edgewood, and he stood out for them in our eyes. So Owen Porter from Madison Edgewood is our Division One state tournament player of the week.
All right, the players of the week. We appreciate, well, they had great seasons. Congratulations, you're a champ. And I don't know what really to add on here, guys. It's just season's come to an end. I mean,
Well, I'd like to cover some of my favorite moments or highlights of the tournament that stuck with me. And one was Sophia Martinelli, the goalie for the Cap City Cougars. They got outshot by a bunch, and that game would never have been as close as it was. But she kept them in that game. And at one point there was a mad scramble for the puck to her right side, and the puck got knocked across the street, and somebody smacked it towards the net, and she lunged with everything she had across the net, caught that puck. I mean, the whistle blew. She looked down and saw the puck was in her glove, and I think she was as surprised as anybody. And she jumped up and held her glove over her head, jumping up and down. It's like, I got it, you know. And I mean, they ended up losing that game 4-0, but I mean, she kept them in that game where they had no business being in that game. And you know, it was it was one of the highlights of the tournament for me.
she kept them in there for quite a while. I mean, it was 2-0 for quite a while, giving her team a chance, but you know, it didn't work out for her. But boy, her performance when I saw her in the sectional final and also the semi at state, she was on her game, no doubt about it.
Yeah, another highlight for me, and we actually, Brett Clace, our photographer, actually captured it. The look on the face of Mara Meverden, the Central Wisconsin Storm. She scored the game-winning goal for the Storm in overtime in their first round game, and it was her second goal of the season. And he caught her just as, you know, the puck went in, and she turned and looked towards her bench, and you could see her face clearly in the picture, and it was pure joy. That's what hockey and the state tournament is all about. Just the joy on her face at that moment.
Yeah, Mara is you won't find a nicer kid, a kid who accepted her role and just did what she was asked to do. I know her from a couple years. I coached her for 2 years there, and a great kid, does what you ask her to do, puts the team first, and yeah, I couldn't have been happier to see her get that goal. Just a super good kid.
One other one for me was just the performance of Stephen Huang from McFarland. He must have gone to bed Thursday night with just visions of Jonah Dickens just coming down on him full speed all alone. But he stopped 4 times. Four times Jonah Dickens came down on him all alone, and he stopped all of them. His statistics were good. He stopped 31 of 34 shots, but that number it pales without context. I mean, the nature of the shots that Tomahawk got on him were much more than just the 34 that they were. I mean, they were breakaways and 2-on-1s and 2-on-0s, and yeah, Steve Hoying just did an outstanding job of keeping McFarland in that game.
Think we would also be remiss if we didn't mention Amy Toole's 54 saves against the Storm, and Eau Claire's semifinal game against the Storm, and just how unbelievable she played to keep her team close. And then Eau Claire, as they had done all through the playoffs, down throughout the entire game, and then found a way to then had a couple goals with in the last, I think it was probably 7 minutes of that game, and then get a breakaway. The girl who had started the scoring, Molly Wright, got that breakaway with under 10 seconds to go and made that move, and that puck just was right on the pipe and got stuck, or Eau Claire would have pulled off the upset of the tournament. But certainly Amy, just an unbelievable 54 save performance for the Stars.
Or are you talking about the game where at the end of regulation the shots were 51-11,
That's
and the
the
score
one.
was tied at 3?
Yes, that's the
Yeah,
game.
that game, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She had a large part in that game.
Sounds like a very large part she played. All right, guys. Anything else you guys want to hit on quick?
I am glad that somebody in Waha Region 2, since they've gone to 2 divisions, finally won state. That's the region that I grew up in: Anago, Mosinee, Rhinelander, Lakeland, Tomahawk, Northland Pines. They've had some cracks at it, but since they've gone to 2 divisions, it's been Springs, Rice Lake, New Richmond, and Springs again. And now this year we finally get to crown Tomahawk. And being from that Northwoods part of Wisconsin over there in the northeastern part of the state, I was just happy to see that one of our teams finally managed to pull through.
And it would certainly be a travesty if, the result of Tomahawk winning the state tournament was them getting moved up to Division 1, because we will repeat this because you mentioned it earlier, they are the smallest public school with hockey in the WIA. 348 students, and they're all homegrown. They should not be moved up to Division 1.
Totally agree.
When listening to Coach Reilly, like I loved when he was talking about trying to retool the youth program, how he went to the best athletes at the younger ages, and as he said, took away every excuse for them not to play hockey, and got those kids, because in schools that size like that, you have obviously smaller percentage of really good athletes than if your school has 1,000 or 1,500 kids in it. It reminds me a little bit of what Coach Curley always told me at Hayward, is they'd always try to find the best athlete as a squirt and convince him that he should be the goalie because he could influence the game more than any other player on the ice. So good. I think it's a pretty good strategy.
Right. We used to talk about that before that. Every school has so many blue chip athletes, and the schools that do well in hockey are the ones that get them blue chip athletes to play hockey. Like Wisconsin Rapids, for a while, they got some of those guys to play hockey, but for the most part, in the winter, those guys wrestle. Superior. If you want to make a name for yourself in Superior, you play hockey. If you want to make a name for yourself in Eagle River, you play hockey. You have to get the top athletes to play hockey. And yeah, if you can do that, and if they're good enough athletes, you can have a good program.
We've said, Tomahawk is the smallest public school program in the WIA playing hockey. The next smallest above them is 25% larger than they are. So for every 4 kids at Tomahawk, there are 5 at the next largest public school. And that's Northland Pines. Northland Pines isn't supposed to be 25% bigger than anybody. They're 25% bigger than Tomahawk. Tomahawk is tiny, and it's not like they can draw from the surrounding area, because to their south is Merrill, to their north is Minocqua, which is Lakeland, to their east is Rhinelander and Eagle River, to their west is Chequamegon Phillips. The Price Ice is their youth hockey association. So, I mean, Tomahawk youth hockey and Tomahawk is just Tomahawk.
But Northland Pines, as we talked earlier, Northland Pines is going to get all of the top athletes. Northland Pines, you walk into the dome at Northland Pines, that great dome, my favorite hockey rink in the state, and they have pictures of their men's teams, from 1954 and teams from the 1940s. They have a tradition up there. They are on, fourth and fifth generation hockey players. I mean, yeah, you want to make a name for yourself in Eagle River, you play hockey. I don't even know if or why they have a basketball team or if they have wrestling. Don't know. In the winter, you want to make a name, play hockey.
I got two more quick notes. Luke Stir from Rock County as stepping down from the girls' position down there. He made that announcement to his team. And I also got word today that Pat McDonald is stepping down and retiring from coaching and teaching at the end of this year. Pat started coaching at Eau Claire North in 1991, which I think was the same year I started at Spooner, and played against him. Been playing, coached against him for a lot of years. But Pat was really highly involved with the board, the WHCA board, and the All-State, the state banquet. A great coach who's been a part of Wisconsin high school hockey for a long time. Sad to see him stepping away.
Well, and like we said, he had, he was the coach in Wisconsin Rapids, and he was going up against their wrestling program, which was like the cream of the crop in Wisconsin. And for a while, he was able to draw enough athletes away from their wrestling program. But I don't know. I don't know if it's because they never won a state tournament that, those top athletes decided to return to wrestling or something, because he had a good run. They were very competitive for a number of years. And then in the last couple of years, they've fallen off. I think it's I don't know if all the guys went back to wrestling or what, because you only have so many top athletes in any given school class.
Okay. Guys, it's been a fun year. I know the season's over and we get to look forward to next November. That's probably when we'll be back with another edition of This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey. So for the Bergs and Dan Bauer, I'm Mike Hammett. See you in November on This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey.